Hi everyone, this is Rob Chadwick with ADL, and this is a bit of background tutorial and reference for the tutorial session today. Um, I'm going to go ahead and run through the tutorial and explain a little bit while I'm doing it. I'm also going to do a very similar presentation during the day, but you can refer to this on YouTube for some reference material, or if you didn't catch something or you need to go back. So I'm going to start. I've just opened my browser. And we have to navigate to one of the three servers that we're going to use today to run the session. You can pick a server randomly, or we will assign you a server at the tutorial session. Just remember which server you're using. You'll want to start by navigating to that URL, and those will be in your handout and also on the website. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you now. And you'll see a environment pop up. I'm going to go ahead and log out because I was doing this previously, so let me start fresh. There we go. So the first step in the session is to verify that we have WebGL support. Now, of course, I know that I do, but I'll show you how to do that. You'll notice that I'm not logged in. So the login link here is not my name. It says login. When I do that and I go to create, it's going to give me sort of a warning. That's because anything I create is not going to persist on the server because I don't have an account. But I'm going to say, no, I want to try it anyway. And this is going to launch us into a blank environment that is not synchronized across the servers and is non-persistent. But if I see a grid on the screen, then I know I've got WebGL support. And if the whole thing loaded, then I know I've got WebSockets. So we should be good to go. At this point, I've just finished up step one of the setup and design session. At this point, I want to just go back over some of the prerequisite and background information and show you how to navigate around the scene a little bit. I use a 3-button mouse. The software is really designed for that, but there are also interfaces for keyboards and trackpads. If you've got a 3-button mouse, if I right-click and drag, I'm going to orbit the camera around the center point. If I move up and down, you'll see I kind of orbit vertically. If I push down on the mouse wheel, usually your mouse wheel is also a button. If I push down, I can slide my camera around in the kind of plane of its view. And if I roll the mouse wheel, I'll zoom in and out towards the selection point, or really the center of the camera orbit. Now, you might get yourself into a situation where you can't zoom in anymore, right? Look what's happening here. I'm rolling, and every time I push the wheel forward, a little bit less happens, right? But as I roll out, it goes faster and faster. That's simply because each click of the mouse wheel brings you a certain percentage closer to the center of this orbiting. When you get to a certain distance, we start pushing that center away from you, and you end up at sort of a low, constant speed. I'll show you in a moment how you can fix that if you are in sort of a frustrating position and the mouse isn't moving enough. Let me show you what to do if you have a keyboard. I'm hitting the right arrow key and the left arrow key, and then the up arrow key and the down arrow key. I'm just tapping them here because it goes pretty fast if I hold them. If I hold Control while using the up and down key, I can zoom. And if I hold space, then I use these arrow keys, I can pan around. This is just like my middle mouse button. Now, if you have a trackpad or a 1-button mouse, you kind of use a combination of both of these modes. So, I'm going to shift. I'm going to hold down the shift key. Shift is down. And now, moving my mouse without pressing any buttons is going to orbit the camera. If I hold Shift and Control at the same time and move the mouse without pressing any buttons, then I kind of pan the camera. If I want to zoom, I'll use the keyboard shortcut, which is Control up and down. There we go. So this is most natural, I think, with a 3-button mouse. Maybe that's just because I've been doing it for a long time with that system. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about selections and focusing the camera. I'm going to create the sphere button up top just to make myself one object to work with, and I'll show you a couple of important things. So I'm using my mouse to move around, and I want to go see that object. It's kind of hard to get to it. There's a focus button up top on the screen here. If I click that, what it's going to do is reset that center of rotation to the center of the selected object. And that makes it very easy for me to just jump right back to the selection. If you're using a keyboard, then I believe it is Shift and Control. Looking at the tutorial here. Let's see if it's Control Space. So Control Space on the keyboard will do the same thing. I recommend you go ahead and use this little button right here. I think everybody should have at least a single button mouse. Nobody is using this with no mouse or trackpad or anything. You'll also notice that I'm left clicking a single time to select, and you can tell what's selected, right? Because there's all kinds of graphics around the selected object. If I have two objects, I can just select between them by clicking on them. One thing that you might find yourself doing is doing a region selection. So what I'm doing here is I'm clicking and dragging with the left mouse button, and that's kind of give me a box, and when I let go of it, all the objects that touch the box get selected. In this tutorial, there is no need for you to do multiple selections like this. So be careful, because you don't want to see this. You'll actually notice on the bottom status bar here, it says Sphere 1, Sphere 2 are selected. It is going to be fairly important during this tutorial that you execute the steps while the correct object is selected. So be very careful when you're reading through the instructions, and you can double check to see what's selected here where it says the names. There's a couple different ways to do that also. If you have the Properties panel open, it's also right at the top of the Properties panel. Now, I do want to show you a couple of bits of the user interface that are going to be important. In the tutorial session, I talk about the status bar, which is down here, the toolbar, which is this row of icons, and the menu bar, which are these drop downs. Most of the user interface that you'll interact with is actually going to pull up into what I call the side panel here. This side panel stacks up different editor windows. So this is the properties. If I click material, material stacks up on top of that. Actually, if I click properties again, properties will sort back to the top if I close it and open it. So these side tabs here will toggle on and off different editors. See how that works? If I toggle them all off, the whole thing collapses. That's an important thing to understand. Another thing that's important is that each of these editors that loads into the side panel here actually comes with several different kind of tabs within them. I'm not sure exactly what to call them here. So we click on these side tabs, and we open Properties, and then inside Properties we have several different tabs or panes or whatever you want to call them inside of this Properties editor. And then I can do things like open the Hierarchy editor, and that pops it on top. It's a whole separate panel. I can also collapse it while there are still editors open, and I can see what's open because these icons here light up in blue to show what's active and what's not. Finally, there is a similar but simpler sidebar on the left here. These are going to be all of your entities, and those entities I'm going to go into in a moment. This is also arranged into tabs or panels inside of here. And you'll notice I click the title bar, they'll open up. Something to be aware of is it is possible for there to be sort of behind the play, pause, stop button on the status bar here. Right here you can see that one of these has been sort of hidden, so be careful of that.